You squeeze the handle at the gas pump and look away. The fuel rushes in, and then, at the exact moment the tank is full, the nozzle clicks off. Every time, no camera watches the fuel level, no sensor sends a signal. There is no battery, no chip, no wire inside that handle at all. So how does the gas pump know when to stop? The answer is a trick of air. Let's slice it open. Pick up the nozzle and you are holding pure mechanics. Inside the metal body, there is a main valve, a spring, a lever, and a flexible rubber disc called a diaphragm. That is the whole brain. The design dates back to the 1930s, and it has barely changed since. It works in freezing winters and desert summers, with no power and nothing to recharge. Everything that follows, the sensing, the deciding, the shutting off, happens with moving parts and moving air. Squeeze the trigger and you lift the main valve off its seat. Gasoline surges up the hose, through the body of the nozzle, and down the spout into your tank, about 10 gallons every minute at full flow. That is roughly 38 liters. The fuel moves fast, and that speed matters. Because on its way through the nozzle, the stream is forced through a narrow pinch point, and a fast fluid in a narrow space does something strange. The pinch point is called a venturi. When a fluid squeezes through a narrow throat, it has to speed up. The same amount of fuel must pass through a smaller opening, and when a fluid speeds up, its pressure drops. That is the Venturi effect, the same physics that helps lift an airplane wing. So while you fill your tank, there is a small zone inside the nozzle where the pressure is always lower than the air around it, a built-in vacuum made by the fuel itself. Now look at the tip of the spout, the metal tube you slide into your tank. Near the end, there is a tiny hole, about the size of a pinhead. Most people never notice it. A slim tube runs from that hole, up inside the spout, all the way back to the low-pressure zone at the venturi. This little hole is the nozzle's only sense organ. It cannot see and it cannot measure. All it can do is breathe. While your tank is filling, the fuel level sits below the tip of the spout. So the sense hole hangs in open air. The vacuum at the venturi pulls gently on the tube, and air flows in through the hole to answer it. A steady, easy stream, like sipping through a straw. As long as air keeps moving through that tube, the pressure inside it stays close to normal. The nozzle reads that as one simple message: keep pumping. Then the tank fills. Gasoline rises past the tip of the spout and covers the sense hole. Liquid is far harder to pull through that tiny opening than air, so the flow through the tube nearly stops. It is the moment a straw hits the bottom of a milkshake. The venturi keeps pulling, but now nothing comes through to relieve it. In a fraction of a second, the suction inside the tube spikes. The nozzle has felt the fuel. That spike of suction reaches a small chamber inside the handle, sealed on one side by the rubber diaphragm. Under normal pumping, the diaphragm sits relaxed, held flat by a spring. But when the vacuum surges, the higher air pressure on the other side shoves the diaphragm inward. A firm, decisive flex of just a few millimeters. It is a tiny motion, but the diaphragm is connected to a mechanism that has been waiting, under tension, this whole time. Here is the clever part. Your trigger never holds the valve open directly. It pivots on a small latch, a set of spring-loaded balls, or a pin that acts like a temporary hinge. When the diaphragm flexes, it yanks that latch out of position. Instantly, the trigger has nothing to pivot against. It goes slack in your hand, the spring slams the main valve shut, and the fuel stops. The whole chain, hole, tube, diaphragm, latch, fires in under a second. That clack you hear is the latch letting go and the valve snapping home. Notice what it means. The nozzle did not decide anything. There is no threshold stored in a memory chip, no calculation running anywhere. The geometry decides. The fuel itself, by covering one pinhead-sized hole, pulls the trigger on its own shutoff. Engineers call this a passive system, and passive systems are prized for one reason. With nothing to compute, there is almost nothing to fail. This also explains the annoying part: when the pump clicks off too early, with your tank half empty. Fuel pouring into a tank splashes and foams, and a wave or a burst of foam can swallow the sense hole for an instant. The nozzle cannot tell foam from a full tank, so it plays it safe and shuts off. It is also why topping off after the click is a bad idea. You are fooling a safety device that already told you the truth. So run the chain one more time. You squeeze the trigger and fuel races through the Venturi, where its speed creates a standing vacuum. That vacuum sips air through the sense hole at the tip of the spout. The rising gasoline covers the hole, the airflow chokes, and suction spikes back up the tube. The diaphragm flexes, the latch trips, the trigger goes slack, and the spring slams the valve shut. Fuel, vacuum, hole, diaphragm, latch, click. 5 moving ideas, 0 electronics. Next time you hear that click, give the nozzle a second look. In your hand is a machine that senses without sensors and decides without a brain. Nearly 90 years old and still on duty at every station on Earth. The best engineering does not always need more parts. Sometimes it just needs the right hole, in the right place, listening for the moment air turns to fuel. That is the Cutaway. If it changed how you see the gas pump, subscribe. There is a whole world left to slice open.